Almost. Okay, I think we can start. Thank you. We can start, Daniela. Daniela, are you there?
Good morning, everyone. I am Daniela Bass, the Director of the Division for Inclusive Social Development that has organized this expert group meeting. Actually, it's a multi-stakeholder dialogue. We're going to discuss about sport and the role it plays in reducing inequalities and also tackling important situations by building resilience when we're facing moments of crisis. And so my warmest welcome to the over 130 registrants from 24 different countries, with a fairly even mix of participants from the private sector, governments, the United Nations system, sport entities, and the civil society. And welcome to the second multi-stakeholder dialogue, as I said, on the role of sport in addressing inequalities in times of crisis and recovery, while the first was held in 2020. And that one was focusing on the role of digital and assistive technologies. So sharing your good practices, suggesting implementable innovative solutions that through sport for development and peace can accelerate the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda, that is the roadmap designed by member states for the world to be inclusive, leaving no one behind and no country behind. Well, that's the goal we all have together today. So your precious experience, engagement, and hopefully commitment now and in the future will feed the Secretary General report on sport for development and peace that we are preparing with the recommendations, yours as well, for consideration by the 194 states. So many are the members of the United Nations, and therefore, based also on the recommendations we collectively are going to suggest to member states will take their decisions and resolutions on the way forward. So you can imagine your presence and contribution is very, very, very important. And we thank you for being here. Today, our world faces generational challenges, from poverty and hunger to climate change, to the COVID-19 pandemic, to the widening of the gap of inequalities. And more than ever, we need to overcome our differences and unite as one team, working together to tackle these obstacles and create a safer, more peaceful, and more sustainable future for all. This dialogue will serve to provide innovative and feasible solutions to close the gap of socioeconomic and environmental inequalities, Sustainable Development Goal 10, between North and South, and also globally as a universal enabler of development and peace by looking closely on the role of sport to promote inclusion of all people, of all ages, gender, ethnicity, and ability. Often we say persons with disabilities, but we want to focus on the abilities of the people we are serving. And it will also therefore contribute in serving as a catalyst of employment, Sustainable Development Goal 8, and reduce poverty, Sustainable Development Goal 1. And then we will focus on the role of sport to prevent violence and promote peace, inclusive and just societies, Sustainable Development Goal 16. And the power of sport to build resilience in times of natural and man-made disasters. Therefore, there is an opportunity to rethink the relationship between sport and climate change, Sustainable Development Goal 13. And support and expand the efforts already underway, aligning to the Paris Agreement goals, competing in the race to zero to achieve climate neutrality by the year 2050. Because you see, while sport diplomacy is already amplifying the positive impact of sport, it is time to expand on that mission and to build upon the foundation already laid and tackle climate change through sport and national policy frameworks, capacity building, and diverse partnerships that aim to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So while enabling government action, the sport industry can be a powerful and visible trailblazer with the adoption of sustainable standards that spill over into the various sectors. So we're talking about creating international cooperation and partnerships, Sustainable Development Goal 17. So sport is in a unique position to display leadership, and the eminent speakers that follow will share more on the role of sport as a mean to overcome inequalities from different angles. After the speakers' remarks in plenary, I will then outline very briefly the agenda before splitting into 4 groups and rejoin in plenary afterwards. Please do note that in the second part of the plenary, the rapporteur of each group will have 3 minutes sharp, to share the takeaways and the key highlights and recommendations of the group on the theme of this dialogue. And now, without further ado, I am really honored to introduce Ms. Maria Francesca Spatolisano, who is the Assistant Secretary General for Policy Coordination and Interagency Affairs at the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, that is DESA. And also you, ASG, have 4 minutes for your remarks. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Daniela, Director in DESA, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for joining our dialogue on the role of sport in addressing inequalities in times of crisis and recovery. Your participation signals your appreciation for the power of sport and your commitment to being part of the growing global movement to harness sport to improve people's lives and advance shared goals for a more equitable and peaceful world. To quote Nelson Mandela, he said, "Sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people." And our world certainly needs the inspiration, unity, and opportunity that sport is uniquely able to bring to all corners. The unequal burden of COVID-19 pandemic has revealed the extent to which inequalities and discrimination have already marked our societies. At the same time, the pandemic has further deepened inequalities. Poorer countries and households have been slower to recover incomes. They face greater losses in education and livelihoods, and are disproportionately impacted by overburdened health system and mental health challenges. Women, minorities, informally employed, and other disadvantaged groups have been hit particularly hard. As countries struggle to recover from the pandemic, many face increasingly destructive climate disasters and rising tide of conflict and violence. Such crises generate new inequalities and leave already disadvantaged populations even further behind. Against this backdrop of crisis and recovery, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development offers a roadmap forward. With its adoption, UN member states recognized that high and rising inequalities are an impediment to growth, as well as a violation of shared norms, values, and people's intrinsic sense of fairness. UN member states also expressed their appreciation for the role of sport in advancing development and peace, including through the empowerment of women, young people, and social inclusion. This dialogue is an important opportunity to explore how sport can be further leveraged to address inequalities and help our societies recover from the global pandemic. And there are a wealth of good practices on which to build. Sport entities, many of whom are here today, have stepped up around the world to deliver the Sustainable Development Goals. Entities such as Box Girls in Kenya target the benefits of sport and physical activity to poor communities and disadvantaged groups. Box Girls challenges stereotypes in urban slums while helping young women build skills and self-confidence. Likewise, governments, businesses, and the UN system are increasingly incorporating sports and physical activity as a tool to deliver the Sustainable Development Goals through their aid budgets, corporate and social responsibility, and sustainable development strategies. Many have discovered the policies that enable and mandate inclusion in sport are not only the right thing to do, they also make a good business sense and help maximize the benefits of sport by paving the way for broader social inclusion with role models that empower women and girls, persons with disabilities, indigenous peoples, and other disadvantaged groups. Sports, including at grassroots level, is an underrated and underutilized source of poor growth and employment in much of the poorer parts of the world. It is clear that the full potential of sport to contribute to the SDGs and address inequalities has yet to be unleashed. And this is why I would like to challenge you to use this dialogue to listen and learn from each other, but also to think big and zero in on solutions. A few questions. What can be done to scale up what works for the benefit of poor and disadvantaged communities? What role is there for governments, regional entities, private sector, development banks? How can we at the UN use our convening power to create partnerships and better coordinate sport-related initiatives to achieve greater impact? You will go deeper into this, and I thank you for your active involvement, vision, and commitment to making the most of sport to achieve a better world. I wish you the best for this productive and fruitful dialogue, and I thank you for your attention.
Dear Assistant Secretary General Francesca Spattolizano, we much appreciate your remarks and for having set the tone of this multi-stakeholder dialogue. And now I'm very much honored to introduce thank you so much. I'm honored to introduce now the video message of Her Excellency Sheikh Ali Ahmed bin Saif Al-Thani, who is the ambassador of Qatar and co-chair of the Group of Friends on Sport for Sustainable Development. And I remember and remind you that each speaker has about 4 minutes. Now, please, let's see the video message of the ambassador of Qatar to the UN in New York.
Dear colleagues, I would like to thank DESA for organizing this important event on the role of sport in addressing inequalities in times of crisis and recovery. Sport can help address inequalities and social inclusion and is an important enabler of sustainable development, human rights, and peace. The State of Qatar is delighted that on Friday, April 8th, the United Nations General Assembly welcomed in a consensus resolution co-sponsored by 106 member states the State of Qatar's hosting of the FIFA World Cup, scheduled to take place from the 21st of November to 18th of December of 2022. The resolution welcomes the unique and historic dimension of the first FIFA World Cup to be held in the Middle East and the Arab world. The resolution as well emphasizes that sport, in particular football, given its universal popularity, has an important role to play in the promotion of peace and development, respect for human rights, gender equality, and the empowerment of women and girls. Against the backdrop of the COVID crisis and recovery, we are very pleased that the General Assembly resolution as well expresses its support for the launch of Healthy 2022 World Cup, Creating Legacy for Sport and Health, a multi-year collaboration between FIFA, the World Health Organization, and the State of Qatar, which aims to make the 2022 World Cup a beacon for the promotion of healthy lives, physical and mental health, and psychological well-being. The State of Qatar is committed to ensuring that the 2022 tournament leaves a lasting legacy for peace, sustainable development, and climate action. I would like to conclude with a recall by His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al-Thani, the Emir of the State of Qatar, noting that the World Cup is not only a moment of joy, but also a moment that brings people and nations together. And I thank you.
Well, we thank the message of Ambassador, also in her role as a co-chair of the group of Friends on Sport for Sustainable Development. But now, if we have heard what's going to happen in the world when it comes to soccer and football, we also wonder what is happening in the world of basket and how it can promote equity. And this is what Mr. Amadou Gallo-Fall will share with us in his role as president of the Basketball African League. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniela, and hello, everyone. I want to first give special thanks to the UN Action Plan on Sport for Development and Peace and the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs for collaborating to advance the positive contributions sport can have on people, communities, and nations. And I greet you from Cairo, Egypt, where we just tipped off the second season of our Basketball Africa League. And the Basketball Africa League is the culmination of many decades of the NBA's engagement on the African continent. Through those decades, we've had the first-hand privilege to see the impact, the positive impact that basketball and sports can have on lives and community. And I am a living example of that impact, having benefited from an athletics scholarship as a teenager from Senegal to move to the US and go to school, play basketball. And today I'm here honored to be working for the NBA and to continue on the path of using sports as a catalyst. And we have a long history on the continent as the NBA, and this history can be dated back effectively to 1984, when Hakeem Olajuwon from Nigeria was drafted #1 overall by the Houston Rockets. Hakeem went on to win 2 NBA championships and is recognized as one of the 75 greatest NBA players of all time. His remarkable career inspired a generation of African players to follow in his footsteps. Among these players, our current global ambassador and a Hall of Fame himself, Dikembe Mutombo from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Dikembe joined then Commissioner David Stern in 1993 on a trip to South Africa with a delegation, contingent of players and coaches and executives to meet then President Nelson Mandela right at the end of apartheid. Following, we've launched Basketball Without Borders in 2003 as our basketball development and community outreach project, where we brought 100 young people from over 35 countries across Africa for a week of life skills seminar and teaching the fundamentals of basketball. And I think this camp ultimately opened our eyes on the enormous opportunity we had in Africa, not only to grow the game of basketball, but to use the transformative power of our sport to empower, inspire, and elevate youth and communities. So we decided to open an office in 2010 in Johannesburg. This is how NBA Africa was born. And I moved to Johannesburg and to just double up on the efforts because of the enormous opportunities we saw. We focused at grassroots level because our #1 priority, we didn't come in and say, let's start a professional league. We decided to just make the game of basketball accessible because the benefit I've seen firsthand, we wanted to make sure we replicate that in as many young people as possible. So we focused at grassroots, creating participation opportunities for boys and girls to play the game learn the values of the game, and grow to become better citizens. So our effort at grassroots level ultimately led us to the creation of the Basketball Africa League today. The Basketball Africa League is a Pan-African professional league that features 12 clubs from 12 African countries today, and which is going to shine a light on Africa's vibrant sporting culture and on the continent's capacity to be a global leader. The BAL is part of the NBA's broader efforts to use sports as an economic growth engine across all Africa and as a platform to improve the health and wellness of one of the world's youngest and fastest growing population. This season and going forward, the BAL will serve as a catalyst to promote Africa's development agendas by hosting BAL games in iconic African cities, facilitating the movement of people, goods, and services, contributing to local tourism, spurring infrastructure development, and more. Our shared conviction in the convening and transformative power of sport is underpinned by the game of basketball's capacity to, again, inspire, empower, elevate, and connect the young people of the African continent. The BAL and the NBA have been carrying out endeavors on the continent hinge on our social justice pillars, economic inclusion and gender equity. Last year, we launched several initiatives focused on raising awareness about gender-based violence, supporting girls' education, growing female participation in basketball at all levels, and increasing both NBA Africa and the BAL's partnerships and business relationships with African-owned small and medium enterprises. In December 2021, NBA Africa and the BAL joined 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, the most widely recognized and longest running campaign for women's rights in the world, and of the goal of eliminating all forms of gender-based violence against women. Last month, in conjunction with International Women's Day, the BAL launched BAL for Her, a new platform to advance gender equity in the African sports ecosystem and celebrate women in the sports industry who serve as role models to young women across the continent. And today here in Cairo, we have our BAL for Her Day. So during each stop in the 2022 BAL second season, we started in Senegal last month, we are in Egypt this month, we will be in Rwanda next month. Young women from the local basketball community will be invited to take part in game day experiences and workshops focusing on building careers in the sports industry. To advance access and equity in youth sports for young girls and women, the NBA launched Her Time to Play, a basketball development program aimed at providing more opportunities for women to connect, collaborate, and inspire one another through the game of basketball. And these are just a few examples. Even with everything we are doing to make basketball more accessible across the continent, there's a lot more work to do. And we believe we are just scratching the surface of the impact the game can have on the people, communities, and nations of Africa. Thank you again for having me. I look forward to working with this group and continue our mission of using sports to uplift communities, address inequalities, and change lives. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It is really impressive, the important work you do by overseeing the league's business and basketball operations, and also leading, as you said, the efforts to build a comprehensive basketball ecosystem in Africa. So thank you so much. And our next eminent speaker is Ms. Nicole Matuska, who is the U.S. Director of Women Win. So I would like to give you the floor now and listen to some of your experiences and good practices that will feed into this dialogue.
Thank you so much, Daniela, and thank you, everyone. It's quite an honor to be here with these distinguished speakers and organizations today, so really appreciative. So Women Win is a global multidimensional women's fund investing in and supporting a diverse global portfolio of re-grantees with a vision of a future where every girl and woman exercises their rights. So specifically through our Girls Initiative is Women Win advances the playing field that empowers adolescent girls and young women to exercise their rights through sport and play specifically. So together with our implementing partners, we've impacted the lives of over 4 million adolescent girls and young women in over 100 countries around the world. So as the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the globe in the past 2 years, I think we all know exactly that we're really beginning to understand these cyclical health, economic, and social impacts that this virus and future pandemics, future conflicts will have on our communities, with some of the most vulnerable communities feeling the biggest impacts and consequences. But the great news is that Sport for Peace and Development initiatives are a must and must continue to be essential tools for our post-COVID or post-conflict realities. And I'm just going to provide some examples. Our partners and allies, grassroots organizations, collectives, sports clubs, federations, women's funds are really doing the incredible frontline work on the ground to build back their communities and build them back better through sport and play. So I'm just going to share a couple of those examples with you today. So a longtime partner of Women Win, Vijani Amani Pamoja, based in Nairobi, Kenya, works with pregnant adolescent girls and young mothers living in the slums of Nairobi who face incredible risks that compromise their health and economic freedom and stability. Through the Secure Futures program, VAP, and Women Win provide tailored sports-based life and parenting skills programs, which include vocational training and support and entrepreneurship training with the aim of accessing livelihood opportunities and pathways for income generation. In addition, so in partnerships with women's funds, sport for development organizations, and feminist activists, Women Win launched the Onside Fund in 2020, so right when the pandemic was hitting, a participatory grant-making mechanism that rapidly mobilizes unrestricted resources for girls and women and young women-led organizations and groups through a pooled fund. Onside actively looks to support all cis, trans, non-binary, and other underrepresented groups and communities, including Black, Indigenous, Mestiza, people of color, LGBTQIA+, refugees and migrant girls, and women with or without disabilities. So since 2020, the fund has supported 60 different groups and individuals with over $500,000 in funding of feminist hyperlocal solutions that challenge inequalities in the sports system and structures at all levels, from the local to international. And just a quick example of one of these groups that received funding and support is the Trans Youth Initiative in Uganda, a human rights advocacy organization that advocates for rights, issues, and concerns of rural transgender youth women, sex workers, and gender diverse youth in Western Uganda. They use netball as a way to provide safe spaces for the development and visibility of their target population. So as we head out into these breakouts, I just wanted to share with you 5 calls to action that Women Win has identified in collaboration with our partners to explore opportunities for really an improved and enhanced sport for development reality and ecosystem that is equitable, inclusive, and really led by the local communities themselves. So one is holding the line and focusing on some of the most vulnerable to ensure that the social gains we've made in the past are not reversed. So the past couple of years, we've seen incredible advancements in sport participation and engagement of girls, non-gender conforming youth, and other marginalized young people. However, evidence points to the fact that the effects of the pandemics and conflicts will disproportionately affect these marginalized and vulnerable young people. So what are ways we can safeguard any of these gains made and ensure we don't go backwards in the post-COVID-19 phase? How can we put their leadership at the forefront? Second call to action is acting local to feed the global. So COVID-19, I think, has really highlighted the nuanced context of every village, city, country, and region, and the importance of local knowledge, local expertise, and local decision-making. How can we ensure sports programs are a part of the fabric of communities that serve the needs beyond just sport and play? How can we as a sector use the opportunity to create virtual networks across the global North and South that foster deep sharing of best practices, staff, and resourcing? The third is creating unusual alliances and plan for multiple new realities. So working across sectors within communities and globally is essential, I think, in this post-COVID world and post-conflict world, requiring a system which a system-wide approach. So we know that this pandemic is not a temporary disruption, that there will be future pandemics, there will be future global conflicts. How can we engage in meaningful scenario planning as a sector that requires us to think differently and consider different versions of our reality? How can we establish intersectional work as a norm by bringing together top sport for development, in women's case, the women's rights organizations that we work with to serve young people in a more efficient and effective way. Number 4 is prepare for the predictable, focusing on economic resilience and trauma. So the catastrophic short, medium, and long-term mental health and economic impacts of the COVID-19 reality will really require our sector to emphasize and prioritize programs focused on livelihood, training, and deep trauma. How can a trauma-informed approach ensure sport is a safe space that young people, particularly the most vulnerable and marginalized, can come back to and heal? The risk of losing talented coaches and other key program staff is also highly likely, as you all know, within your programs. And this will have an impact on the quality of our programming. How can we create localized strategies to mitigate this risk? And lastly, really advocating for a healthy sport for development ecosystem. We won't survive if everyone is only thinking about their own backyards. How can we work in collaboration to ensure a collective movement forward as a sector that includes global diverse perspectives? How do we leverage existing and create new networks to influence those who will influence investments and the construction of our communities so we can build back better? So those are a couple of our sort of calls to action that Women Win has identified as we've tried to navigate this world, and we can't wait for the breakouts to really dive into some of these. So thank you again, and we're honored to be here.
Thank you. And let's remember that the United Nations has the convening power and give the space to discuss and find solutions also to some of the questions you posed today. And thank you for sharing with much passion how Women Win, together with your implementing partners, have impacted the lives of over 4 million adolescents, girls, and young women in over 100 countries. And our last speaker is Massimo Seregni. I can pronounce his name pretty well, being both Italian, who is the Senior Area Manager for Sub-Saharan Africa and Russia for Intercampus. That is a corporate social responsibility initiative run by the football club Inter Milano. The floor is yours. Massimo Seregni, the floor is yours. Yes. If you are connected.
It's sorry. So as you say, Intercampus project is the corporate social responsibility project of Inter Milan, and it started in 1997. Nowadays, we are working in 30 different countries all over the world. In each of these countries, we rely upon local NGOs, municipalities, institutions, schools, everybody who is already taking care, who is working with children, boys and girls, that's a key point for us, 6 to 14 years old. Different issues, peace, gender equality, juvenile crime prevention. We support them with our specific know-how, which is, of course, is football skills. And we establish a long-term link and agreement with them, a cooperation which, we forecast every time, every year to be there twice in each country to hold clinics in theory and practice to the children and to the local coaches, educators who take care of the children all year long. And we supply everybody with our official sport equipment. That is a key point for children. Actually, we experience, sure, they sleep in our t-shirt. It's so funny. So actually, we have experienced this in the last 25 years of our activity with thousands of children, that football can be a strong and efficient tool in order to get the best results in resiliency. And that happens through the development of the personality of the children on motor area, social area, emotional area, knowledge, cognitive area. And all of this can be challenged, can be improved through sport exercises, which can be thought, forecasted, and suited just to achieve those goals. The strength point of our project, of course, is the obvious fact that the children like to play football. You know, our tool is very desired from the children. So it's a strength point for us. They are eager to play football. They are eager also to be trained by coaches which come from a renowned country and a renowned club coming from abroad. But in the same time, as they have fun by playing, as they amuse, in the meantime, they improve and they learn. Just to give you an idea, a witness of our experience, in the last 2 years, together with the UEFA Foundation for Children, we implemented a specific project in 4 countries in Africa, in Uganda, Angola, Congo, RDC, and Cameroon. We involved around 1,500 children and 70 local coaches, educators, because they are not professional coaches, of course. And the target was to reduce vulnerability and to improve resources. Of course, there were specific local targets to solve some peculiar problems: juvenile crime prevention, social ethnic integration, gender equality, key point for us, street children, rural areas improvement. Well, despite of the difficulties which were caused by the COVID pandemics, we kept the monitoring by remote through social media in these last 2 years. Our strength point, of course, is having local coaches, local personnel, local educators, which go on to do the daily work on the pitch, following our instructions. And it came out as a successful work. And we could testify that because we made questionnaires, which were filled by the children at the start and at the end of the 2 years' time. We focus on resiliency. And we saw, that's very important, we saw that there was a growth, a big growth in the sense of mastery, optimism, self-efficacy, adaptability. There was an improvement in the sense of relatedness, trust, support, tolerance. There was a boost in emotional reactivity, sensitivity. Do you hear me?
Yes, now yes. No, you closed it again, the mic. Yeah, no. Yes.
Here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm
Yes.
a man of the last century, so problem. So the children achieved, by having fun with football, a better way to stay together. They learned to build a team building process. They learned how to ask and to give support to each other, how to get results as a group, how to manage loss and victory, how to be tolerant with their teammates. So we saw, after these 2 years of work, the great results we had. And that was just a confirmation of the validity of our methodology. And in accordance with our staff resource and budget resource, of course, we would like to enlarge, to spread this activity in other countries all over the world, because we practically saw the efficiency of such an approach to children, boys and girls, in distress of any kind. So thank you for listening to me.
Well, what an amazing example of how to use football as an educational tool to help children living in disadvantaged communities and to promote social integration among different ethnic groups and cultures. Thank you so much. We are going now to break into 4 different groups, each tackling a different topic under the umbrella of how sport can address inequalities in times of crisis and recovery. Participants will be directed to their groups and back into plenary after 35 minutes. The moderator of the second part of the plenary is Ms. Martin, who works in the division I lead and is part also of the Office of the Director Team Sport team. I remember and remind that in the second part of the plenary, the rapporteurs are strongly encouraged to stay within the 3 minutes each to have time for questions and answers before the closing of this dialogue that will take place at 10 a.m. New York time. See you in 35 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, hello, everyone who is staying with me here. If you can let me know exactly what, let me just double check.
Hello, Amin.
Yes, hello.
This is Philip from UNESCO. How are you?
Yes, how are you?
Very well. I have asked to be assigned to Group 1. I have no way
Okay,
of
just,
Can you put me into Group 1, please?
yes.
Group A.
Group A. Just 1 second, Philip. Just 1 second, I don't see you here. Which group were you, Philip? Sorry.
I need to be in Group A, please.
Just 1 second, because I don't see your name here. 1 second.
I know I was erroneously assigned to Group D, but there's no sense of me being Group
Oh, okay.
I
That's
need to
all.
be in Group 1, Group A.
I see you were in D. 1 second then. Move to A.
Hi, everyone else in the room I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
And Marco Romiti, are you, sorry, can you remind me, where are you from the mission?
Yeah, I'm from the mission. Can you hear me?
Yes. Are you going also to join
excuse
the group?
excuse me for
Hey,
interrupting. I mean,
as far as I know.
Yes, sorry, who is speaking?
So this is Francesco from UNHCR. I'm afraid I'm in the wrong group. I should be in Group D.
Okay, which group are you now?
I'm not in any group. I'm here.
Are you Francesco Ascione?
Exactly.
Okay, so maybe I'll have you in group B. Is it okay?
D,
sorry. Okay.
D, like Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, bye, enjoy.
And Angela, I'm not sure which group. Let me check.
I'm not aware of the group.
Okay, so I'll just put you in group B and then you can see. And Marco Comiti, so I will put you in group A. Are you from the mission, right, Marco?
Hello, yes, I'm from the Italian mission in
So
New
would
York.
you like to join the group or not?
Yes, I mean, I was supposed to be in Group A, as far as I
Okay,
know.
so I'll put you now, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Caroline from the French mission. Could you transfer the ambassador Laurence Fischer and myself to the Group A, please?
Yes, okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and I see Marisa, are you?
In Group C? I was put in the wrong, but C would be great.
Thank you. And I see your name is not correct. Who are you? Can you speak? Hello.
Hello, good morning, Ahmed.
Yes, good
Chaplain
morning.
from China. Could you switch me to Group A? Thank you.
Good morning. This is David Messenger from the U.S. mission. Could you switch me to Group A, please?
Okay, thank you, David.
Hi, Amin.
Nancy, yes?
Yeah, hi. I'm from UNESCO. Could you switch me to Group C, please?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Sorry, do you see me? Who
I
are
mean,
you?
yeah.
I don't know your name. It says Sarah.
Liana de Souza, I wrote in the chat.
Yes, so are you joining the groups?
Yes, Group B, please. Also wrote in the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca, hello.
Hi, could you move me to group D, please?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Simona, do you hear me? Simona? Jackie, do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. And grateful if I could also move to group C, please. Hi.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Simona, are you there, Marinesco? Okay, so. Yes, hello, who are you? Sorry, can you identify yourself? Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes, who are you, sorry?
Okay, my name is Gianno Diak. I'm the Executive Director of Olymp Africa Foundation.
Okay, are you supposed to be in a group?
I'm supposed to be in Group D. I saw that it was just starting in a few minutes, or...
Yes, so I'll put you in Group D, and then switch.
Hello, can you hear me and see me now? This is Sari from the Chinese mission.
Yes, I cannot. Where are you now? Which group?
I should be in group A, but I'm now still in
I see.
break.
Okay, okay. Now I found you. Sorry. Let me.
Thanks.
Yes, hello. Hello, hello, do you hear me? Yes, hello. Oh, hello, Sarah. How are you? I cannot hear you.
Oh, hi. I'm so sorry.
Everything okay with you?
I had a migraine this morning.
Oh,
I think
see.
I worked too much yesterday.
I'm so sorry. I think we are live, so maybe let's maybe, yeah, we can discuss this later. But are you okay, right?
I'm okay, yes. I'm so sorry. I'm still a little.
Do you want to join the group now, or?
Yeah, if you can, is there a question? I can help at this point. My video seems to be my.
No, that's okay. What group were you? Sorry, group B?
Yep.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so I think it's not, there is no more time, but I'll put you in group B for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for making everything happen.
Yeah.
I set it all up and then I completely lost it.
No, I hope you feel bad. See you. Yes, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Hi, Eli Wolf. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you, Ali?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Sorry,
Were you in the group or?
I just joined actually. I'm sorry I had a
okay,
meeting,
okay.
and but I'm happy to join, or I can wait if I can come back. What time was?
Yeah, I think they're coming back soon. So
Okay, I'll just wait. Yeah, no problem.
Just
I'll
rename yourself so they know who you are.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, sir. Yep.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Well, dear all, we are back into the second part of this multi-stakeholder dialogue, back in plenary, after we have met, split into 4 different groups. And now I will ask Melissa Martin to keep moderating the second part of the panel, reminding the rapporteurs that they have, I strongly encourage to use their 3 minutes to bring the highlights of the conversations and the recommendations to the other participants, and then we will share further questions, answers, and comments before closing today's meeting. Thank you. Melissa? I'm asking colleagues behind the scenes to connect with Melissa Martin, who is going to moderate the second part of this dialogue in plenary.
Yes, Danielle, I think she's coming. Yes, here she is.
Thank you.
Melissa, you have the floor. Thank you.
Everyone. Hello, colleagues. I hope you had some interesting discussions in your breakout groups. And first of all, I'd also like to thank all of our moderators for your leadership during the discussions. I'd like to turn now to our rapporteurs for some feedback on the main points, main takeaways and recommendations from those breakout groups. So first of all, I'd like to call on the rapporteur from Group A, Intergovernmental Dialogue on Policies and Partnerships, to address inequalities through sport.
Yes, thank you, Melissa. So we had a very rich discussion, and I'm sure I cannot do justice to all of the things that were mentioned during this discussions in Group A. But just very briefly, so the main takeaways that could also be basically informants for our recommendations in the upcoming SG report would be to have a strong focus on what positive effects sport can play on the infrastructure, be it small or large scale sports events. They should be scalable and replicable, so they benefit all, to have an impact on various social groups that are marginalized or disaffected. It should involve all stakeholders to make sure that there are not just the sports groups themselves, but that there are also public and private partnerships where capital is used in an efficient way to bring various groups together. Sport should be seen as an investment opportunity that can inform economic performance and can also reduce inequality and poverty of various groups that find some economic opportunities when sports events are planned and implemented. There obviously should be a focus on access and the benefits for various social groups, in particular youth, children, refugees, and persons with disabilities who could benefit the most from sports for development and peace. An interesting point was that there is now measurable data on how sport impacts the SDGs, in particular health and education, and that should obviously be continued, but should also be continued beyond the SDGs themselves. And maybe a last point is what positive effects there are and should be focused on gender equality, especially on girls in rural areas, but on also girls and women who find themselves in refugee situations or other disaster situations where sports can play a very positive role in partially ameliorating these situations. So this is basically our short summary on possible recommendations for the SG report from Group A. Thank you. Over to you, Melissa.
Thank you very much, Robert, and thanks for sticking within the time limit. Now I'd like to call on the rapporteur from Group B, which was sport as a catalyst for employment in poor and disadvantaged communities. So decent work and employment, shall I say. Handing over to Giovanni. Do we have a rapporteur from Group B?
Maybe you can also say who Giovanni is and Robert are.
Sure. Robert works with myself and Daniela in the Division for Inclusive Social Development at UN headquarters in Dessa. And Giovanni works for the ILO in Geneva and is an expert on sport and sport for peace and development and sport and work, decent work and employment.
Among other tasks.
Among other tasks, of course.
Yes,
you have many hats.
It's not the
Giovanni.
only one I have. Yes. Anyway, look, I just want to mention something which is basic trends which came out of the groups, but I will share the detailed input from the group, which are extremely interesting and useful for the report. The first and foremost, I think it's important, is the shifting mindset when we look at labor market, including particularly tasks, roles, and of course jobs. And I think that was mentioned by 2 or 3 of the participants, and I think it's important because we do not imagine how much sport can change this kind of role, and I think we should perhaps focus on this more often. That was the case of a few participants. If I mention one, and then I have to mention everyone, so I won't do that, but it is in my report. I think it's important because we don't give enough attention to this, the obstacles that young people may have in approaching the labor market. So we have very interesting examples of how we should proceed. The second issue, which is also interesting, this happens also in humanitarian situation, including in refugees camp. There is a call for more attention to including people with disabilities in sport. There is not enough guidance, according to a few participants. There was even a call for ILO tools to be used and to be shared with sport federations, which I've taken myself into consideration, of course. There is an issue with respect to COVID, which was highlighted by a few, that basically COVID not only destroyed jobs, but created a chaotic situation. So opportunities and challenges changed. So we need to map out what they are after the COVID. And of course, there are systemic issues which drive inequalities in national context, and these change and have impact on skills framework, including skills through and in sport. My last point is related to a very interesting input concerning sustainability. There are global sustainability benchmarks which are available, and they can be applied to club and association. In fact, they are. Financial industry is probably one of the sectors that is more prone to apply such methodologies. However, and this includes, for example, gender pay gaps and other norms in supply chain and sport manufacturing. I think this is very important. Of course, is another level from the one I mentioned before. There was a call for the UN to lead, and the convening power of UN in sport development and peace was heavily recognized. However, there was also some critics about the fact that there has been a gap between the moment in which it was created in 2004 and now. So we need to do something more on that. And also, and I finished there, there is, this was also a call from one region, not the least Africa, on the same issue, while there is also an attempt to create businesses that have social connection through sport, that they have a social value as from the beginning, and they are sustainable precisely because they do connect with people's reality at all time, and sport is the connection to such a people's reality. I finish here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. I'd now like to call upon the rapporteur from Group C, Sport as a Catalyst for the Empowerment and Inclusion of Disadvantaged Groups, to give us your feedback.
Hello, I'm Suki Hoagland, and we were having this wonderful discussion, but I'm afraid there was a technical issue. And after we were just discussing the first question, I got booted out of breakout C and put into breakout D. So I will say that Victor Calise, who was moderating our session, did a fabulous job. So what I'll do is real briefly talk about what the first question that I heard, and then I'll turn it back over to him because I know he'll have great ideas about what we were talking about. So just real briefly, there was a recommendation that we have to really utilize all different kinds of media to sing from the rooftops about what we're doing and engaging all these unrepresented, marginalized, discriminated groups. A big emphasis on the importance of working with community, getting out of the way, get them resources, and trust them to do the work that they need to locally. The importance of sharing experiences through sport to get maybe historically groups that historically had immense bias or hatreds, that you could use sport to bridge this by sharing sporting events together and get over that historical sort of trauma. The importance of engaging families with these athletes who are coming from populations maybe historically not participating in sports very much. Very challenging information about what's going on with women athletes in Afghanistan and the crackdown of the Taliban, and how all the opportunities for women were just shut, and many of the Afghan women athletes have had to migrate, have had to leave Afghanistan. We even learned about how sport can be used to fight crime and corruption, especially focusing on the youth. And finally, that men continue to be obstructing participation, particularly of women, and they control when you can use the fields, what equipment you can get. And as long as men are obstructing all of this, we've got a long way to go. But I don't want to end on a sad note. Let's end on it. There's so much we can do. And now Victor will tell you all the things that they talked about.
Well, Suki, you were there. I wonder what happened to you. You disappeared, but nonetheless, you did get a lot of what we were talking about. But the other thing is how we could leverage human rights, right? How the UN could leverage human rights, include people with disabilities in that. Talking about leadership in education, meaning that teachers need to be able to have this access to sport and be able to do that, and making sure that there are career opportunities for people to be able to take leadership roles. And of course, we did hear about how men do control everything, and how that needs to change. And we really have to find ways to make sure that women leadership roles are there to be able to do that, and not just women leadership roles, but all the minority groups to be able to come up and be able. And this is the one thing that that resonated with me, and always does. But again, it was great to hear it in this platform, to use our disadvantaged voices as one, our minority groups, people with disabilities, LGBTQ+, women, to advocate as one voice instead of separate entities, because we're stronger in numbers that way. And then also using data. Right, data is not used properly. We heard that from other rapporteurs, as well as how you can use that and leverage that and be able to do to show what's there. And I think I'll end on this one, because we may be running out of time. Is really thinking about inclusive design. And so what's that mean? So for a lot of people, inclusive design means how we build our environments, our physical environments, to make sure that everyone's included, and not just building just for disability specific, but for everything. But taking this inclusive design approach and adding it into sport, and making sure that everyone, again, is working from the same voice to be able to include everyone in sport. So I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, both Victor and Suki. I'd like to move straight on to Group D, sport as an enabler of peace, violence prevention, disaster and relief recovery. And I'd like to call on our rapporteur from UNHCR.
Thanks, Melissa. So I will try to wrap up a very rich conversation in a few minutes. So in Group D, we looked at sport as an enabler of peace, violence prevention, disaster relief, and recovery. And we started off by looking at the past and heard some very inspiring examples from diverse contexts of how different sports have been used to address various challenges, both looking at the persons affected from various disasters, including due to COVID pandemic, but also climate displacements. And these examples really demonstrated how sport can be used to build inclusive and supportive communities for lasting social impact. And also some of the aspects mentioned when we looked at past examples was the usefulness of having methodologies and toolkits in place that can be replicated. Also the value of public-private partnerships. And this is some bit of a segue over to going forward. I think the partnership angles came up a few times, really looking at how we can build wider partnerships, ensuring that we include various levels. And here the key aspect was really looking at the community level. How can we ensure that local communities and community organizations are engaged, and to ensure that when we have this, when the UN that has a convening role in this has the mechanism processes that also can ensure that we can hear the voices from the community level, from the grassroots level. I think that was really one of the key aspects that was amplified by several of the speakers, the importance of the community engagement going forward in this context. And in that also, when we talking about localization, another key issue that came up was question of funding, to ensure that there is flexible funding available for these organizations. Data has already been mentioned. That was also mentioned several times during our discussion. That's a lack of data going beyond anecdotal evidence. So there's a need to have better data collection and analysis to ensure that that can demonstrate the real impact of the programmatic support through sport. And also, so what was mentioned was really both as looking at the past examples going forward was the role of coaches. That is so important to ensure that they are properly supported and sustained, and that specific training is available for coaches to ensure that they're able to deliver those inclusive programs that we are aiming for. I think those were the key aspects from our group, but I will also, I will share the comprehensive notes from the group. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Ingela. And thank you again to all of our rapporteurs and our moderators for your hard work during the breakout groups. I definitely see some interlinkages and some overlap between some of the recommendations and main points that all of our rapporteurs shared. So now I'd like to open the discussion to everyone on the floor. And what we'd like to talk about in the next 15 minutes or so are some other recommendations that we may have missed. And when we think about recommendations for our Secretary General's report on sport for peace and development, we're really looking for those that are very specific, those that are measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. We spoke about the practicality and implementing some recommendations in the breakout group that I was in. But I'd like to turn the floor to you for your expertise and recommendations. So please just raise your virtual hand and I will call upon you. Okay, I see one hand from Graham Clifford. Thanks, Graham.
Sorry, Melissa, can you hear me? You can? Oh,
yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me, okay, sorry. Yeah, I think what I see an awful lot, both here in Ireland, in Europe and across the world, is often funds in relation to the area in which I work, working with asylum seekers and refugees and integration, is that the onus often is placed upon the migrant, be they a refugee, asylum seeker, or have it with another status, to integrate. So we confuse integration and assimilation. So what I would really like to see as we move forward is that focus on initiatives that encourage people to work with rather than for disadvantaged groups. That is the approach I really feel, and I see it every day, and I can see the impact to both sides, those in a host community and those coming in. That if you change the focus and pivot from the focus being on the migrant, on the refugee, on the disabled person, on the whatever it is, and you try to take a more holistic approach, I think your sustainable impact of that is much wider and much stronger, and it mainstreams to a great degree what you're doing rather than putting it in a little, pigeonhole. I think that's a very important approach that I kind of still feel isn't quite there in terms of how we work with disadvantaged groups, Melissa.
Thank you very much for your inputs, Graham. I don't see any other hands yet. Have I missed anyone? Oh, yes, sorry. Fabio Puntillo, you have the floor.
Thank you. Oh, just to share with you our challenge. CONIFA is a Confederation of Independent Football Associations, so we cover all over the globe, but often our members come from small groups of refugees, the people in a disadvantaged position. So the message that I always try to deliver to them, and I think I would like to share with all the members here, and then regardless the efforts we have to face, and important one for our members, we have to try to talk to the global community of human people, proving to them that the challenge of every person, our members, mean the people in extremely difficult position, refugees, people subject to violence, are common to any human being. This is the message I have to deliver with them, to them. I mean, telling stories that are universal stories. Because we cover, for instance, our organization talks about football. I mean, use football as a means. And then we have many other sports organizations like basketball, table tennis, and so on. But the point is, regardless, it's important, the sports, we have to talk to all the 8 billion people around the world, proving that every person that we are trying to help, and they succeed in a very small sports activity, are a success that every person have to learn from and try to use as personal guidance, even if are not part of our communities. So it expresses the universal feeling, which is common to any human being. I think it's important as an enabler of communication, enabler of fundraising, enabler of success of our activities, which becomes relevant to anybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabio, for your inputs. I see a hand from Lawrence Fisher.
Yes, thank you very much. I think we are all convinced of the power of sport and the high potential of this. So I was a former athlete, and now I have the honor to be talking to you and to be an ambassador for sport and ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs, and ambassador for peace and sport, peace and ambassador for peace. And also, I'm involved, as was very involved, because I believe in the sustainable development goals and using as sport for this. And just what can be we need to unify. We are all talking in every part, and thank you for this moment. It's very, very important. We need to unify also every competences, the public one, private sectors, to increase the capacities to develop the sport ecosystem. This is what I really want to share with you, because this is also the way we can also be much more efficient on the field, because we know that it's an incredible solution. So thank you. I really want to share it with you. And, we will host also the Olympic and Paralympic Games. We are fond of big events, but it's much more than that. We know it's much more than that. And I really want to share this these sentences with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. I'd now like to turn to UN Resident Coordinator Simona Marianescu from Samoa to share some thoughts.
Thank you very much. I had an opportunity to write on the chat some of the ideas for the upcoming summit, but I just wanted to share with all of you a concern that at this time when countries around the world are heavily indebted, struggling with a series of challenges that are coming due to COVID and to war, there is a high risk that budgets allocated to education and budgets allocated to sports will go down. So we need to really have a very, very strong message at the Education Summit of the Secretary General in September. We need to provide a lot of good material. The report of UNESCO showing the contribution of sports across the SDGs to economic performance, to peace would be essential. We will also try across UN resident coordinator offices around the world to provide a lot of video content, strong messages around the importance of education as a whole, but sports at the heart of it. So just a call on if we could form a strong coalition of willing to push for some important conclusions at this summit. Otherwise, we will not see progress in this area. Thank you very much indeed, and appreciate the dialogues and the amazing contributions of all participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Simona. I see a hand from Suki Hogland. You have the floor.
Yes, hi, real briefly. I just wanted to say I'm from academia. I'm from a university, and we're doing lots of work now on sustainability in sport, making the connection with peace and development. And I wanted to just say that it would be great if we had more collaboration with academia. And I teach a course now in sports and sustainability, and there are other efforts going on. So we're going to have graduates soon with expertise and passion in this area. And I think if there's some way we can be collaborating and supporting these efforts, you're all saying we need one voice to have more power. And I'm just hoping that perhaps academia could be another voice in that common challenge. I don't know what I'm not thinking of the right verb, but just hoping that maybe if I could help on that academic side.
Yeah, good point. Thank you so much, Suki. Just noting the time, we have about 5 minutes left. So I will, we only have one hand. Oh no, I say two hands, sorry. So we'll take a couple of minutes from Francesco Anesi, and then I'll call upon Amy Fakas Karageorgios, sorry if I got that name wrong, for our final comment.
Well, thanks a lot. I mean, I need to express my gratitude, I mean, to UNDESA and this is, I mean, because it has been very powerful, it has been very inspiring. Following, I mean, from Suki's point, I think what you can do, I mean, is two things. I mean, and these are my 2 points, is on the one hand, to empower this community that has been congregated here. The power of the idea, even in the parallel group, has been particularly strong. So finding way to communicate digitally, to exchange best practice, I hope, I mean, will enable to leverage the power of the conversation that we felt in this very moment. The second element that I would like to stress very much is the fact that we need to break the silos, and we need to talk not only with the converted, but also with the non-converted. I mean, so to a certain extent, I'm making a plea of linking also previous conversation that UNDESA had in terms of innovation, technology. We're living in a post-COVID world, but we're also living in a digital world. So trying to find practical example through linkages with academia, through linkages with school, with hackathons, could be a way to project into the future and to engage with the bigger question of our times, I mean, which is more education, more sport, more humanity for all. So thanks a lot. I mean, I wasn't so clear in the conversation, I mean, but I hope you got my message right, and I will be glad to provide with some additional input afterwards.
Thanks, Francesco. Amy, you have the floor.
Thanks so much. Real quick, as we return to sport post-COVID, or as we transition back, and considering that there's less budget, and that we're all trying to take a rights-based approach, I think that we need to flag there's a need to ensure that our programs and our activities are not discriminating against certain groups. We often in sport and sport for development plan in silos, we plan on how to get a certain group, marginalized group, into another group, into mainstream. And by default, we exclude other groups. And so I would like to take what Victor alluded to, which is more of I would like to see the SG's report talk about a universal design approach and to recommend that there is a conscious effort not to exclude and discriminate by nature of trying to include other groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, I see one more hand from Jackie Lauf. So you have 2 minutes and then we'll have to move to closing.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to share, and just building on the dialogue today, one example from our work in the Pacific region. We just delivered an online training program for PE teachers, and we had 330 participants from 19 countries. Some of the teachers painted a really dire situation where their students have had such limited access to sport and physical activity and physical education for the better part of 3 years. I'm interested to see how we could leverage, first of all, the strengths and the resilience within the sport and the physical education sector, and what strategies people have applied to demonstrate that resilience, that innate resilience, and how we can also look at considering some different scenarios to be better prepared for ongoing closures to schools and shutdowns affecting the sports system. Because this is going to be something where even now countries in our region are still moving in and out of lockdowns and schools are still closing. So this is far from over, but it would be really interesting if the report could recognise that strength and resilience and leverage some of those good practice stories, and also how we can better protect the sector moving forwards. Thank you.
Melissa, you're mute.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Jackie, for sharing your perspectives from the Pacific. We have 5 minutes left, so I'd like to thank you all again for your very, very engaging discussion, and now hand over the floor to the Director from the Division for Socially Inclusive Development, Daniela Bath.
Well, thank you, Melissa, for moderating this panel, and thanks a lot also to the rapporteurs who stick to those 3 minutes. But besides this, we really feel encouraged by your appreciation, actually, of creating this space. As I said, the United Nations has the convening power, and that's what we wanted to do today, to give the space to all the various stakeholders to discuss about the role of sport when it comes to reducing the gap of inequalities, whether they're social, economic, environmental. And we have touched all of these topics, and to promote employment and decent jobs, and see how we can also reduce violence and promote peace through sport. So we appreciate your encouragement, and we will keep therefore organizing these multi-stakeholder dialogues, be that they are meant to feed the Secretary General report on sport for development and peace, and or to keep nourishing this momentum. Most of you said we have to work united, and so we will make sure that this space is going to be provided maybe more often if needed, so not to lose this passion that we have shared so far. I would also like to encourage all of you, particularly if you allow me, member states, but all of you actually, to keep conversations also with member states, so that member states will include in their national voluntary reports that are going to be submitted to the United Nations, to the high-level political forum next July, to include in their national voluntary reports references to sport and the relevance of sport, because this will allow us to do a better job. And when I say us, I mean all of us, including the United Nations. I would also like to thank the team, the Office of the Director Sport team of the division I have the honor to lead. Some of you have met today, Milam Rabat, and you have seen Melissa Martin and Robert Bene, but there are others behind this, the scene that have helped in organizing this dialogue that, trust us, has required lots of efforts. And I'm referring now to Miss Renner, Sarah Renner, and Danica Steinhauser. So thanks to them as well. We will meet soon. We will keep you posted about the outcomes of this wonderful dialogue. Please do go to our website where you can see the team. You can see all the other activities we're doing, including the other entities of the United Nations that are working on sport. They are listed in the group that we created, the Interagency Group on Sport for Development and Peace. And that page, that web page that we have on sport, might also serve as the space where you can keep exchanging information. So we could further elaborate on that. I thank you all. Hope to see you very soon. Let's keep engaged. Let's keep in mind that united we can achieve our goals. So just knock at the door, and the DASA, together with the other entities of the United Nations, will make sure that at our best, we will provide all the tools and share the knowledge we have and learn from you to make sure that through sport, we can reduce the gap of inequalities. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
No, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Daniela, and congratulations to the team.
Thank you. Keep networking.
Merci pour l'invitation aussi. Merci.
C'était un plaisir. Merci.